Several trillions of naira have been spent on Nigeria's steel and iron ore sector. Unfortunately, all have been tragically fleeced away through drain pipes of waste. After several years of failed attempt to revamp the steel sector, the Buhari government came up with a concessioning plan with additional billions of naira frittered away in the deal, which never saw the light of day. Does the Tinubu government have the political will or the magic wand, if you like, to turn around the fortunes of a sector which boasts huge potential for the nation's economic future? I am delighted to have the Minister of Steel Development, Shuaibu Audu. He joins us on Arise Prime Time. Glad to have you join us.
Thank you very much indeed.
On the program. Yeah, a whopping investment of about 7 billion have been expended on steel development, and after about 50 years, Nigeria still grapples with establishing a stable iron steel sector. What is the current state of the steel industry today? I mean, both the Ajaokuta, the Oshobo that I mentioned, yes, all of them.
Yes. You're right. Over the last 45, 50 years, the state of the steel industry has been quite bad. In most cases, most of the plants have been comatose. One, there has been no proper political will over the last several decades to really turn around the steel industry. Before the advent of President Tinubu's government, there's been 10 different presidents that have tried to, resuscitate and revive the steel industry, which has proven very, very difficult. What the president has done to change the dynamics is to create a standalone steel ministry. The work is not an easy task by any means, but Nigerians are expectant and they expect a lot. And we've put a lot of measures in place to try to turn around the story. Of particular importance is to, first of all, set up a roadmap which was, put together by, an internal team of experts to understand what exactly that we're trying to do, both in the short, medium, and long term. We have also put some initiatives in place and taken some far-reaching measures for the likes of, Ajaokuta. We're also working very intensely to revive some of the aluminium companies. We're putting some measures in place to turn around some of the steel rolling mills, which really have not been operational over many, many years, like we mentioned. Yeah. But the work is ongoing, and Mr. President is very determined. And I think the last thing I'll say in that regard is that Mr. President understands and believes that under the Renewed Hope agenda, that Nigeria has all it takes, and the plan is to increase and make Nigeria a $1 trillion economy by year 2030. And to achieve that, the steel sector is very, very critical. Steel, is a very critical component for every major thing that an industrial nation needs, whether it's road, bridges, buildings, and all sorts. So that's the importance that the president is giving to the industry.
Okay, before I ask you to throw more light on the roadmap,
yes,
let me ask you this question. How lucrative, really? I mean, break it down for us. How lucrative is this sector and its prospect for the economy?
It's definitely a multi-billion-dollar industry. If we get it right, and I believe we will, it will be a game changer for the Nigerian economy. The entire steel industry alone, the entire steel and metals industry has the potential to create millions of jobs for Nigerians, from artisanal jobs to engineering jobs to jobs for welders to jobs for engineers, technicians, all of that. Is a massive industry that has huge potential to create millions of jobs, and is a multi-billion-dollar economy. If you look at all the industrialized nations of the world, from China to US, Russia, India, all those big economies have steel sector at the forefront of their economic priority.
Okay, now let's expatiate, maybe have you expatiate more on. It's a 10-year roadmap for the steel development and a 3-year plan to revive particularly the Ajaokuta Steel Complex. Yes. You want to break it down more, expatiate on that.
Correct. Part of what we are doing to, for example, implement the roadmap for Ajaokuta is in September 2024, September last year, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the original builders of the steel plant. Like you mentioned, trillions of naira and billions of dollars have been frittered away. So as a federal government, we decided to go back to the drawing board to meet with the original builders of Ajaokuta to have an MOU where they would rehabilitate and operationalize Ajaokuta over a period of time. They would also bring in the required funding. The federal government doesn't have the kind of money that is required. All the estimates that I have been advised by experts puts the estimated figure for the revamp of the Ajaokuta Steel complex at about $2 billion or so dollars. So it's a lot of money that the federal government doesn't have to put into that. Once the technical audit is done, we're going through a process. The government is a bureaucratic system, so sometimes things are a bit slower than we would all like. But at the end of the day, once the technical audit is done, then there will be a financial term sheet, where they would say, how much it would require specifically to revamp that plant, the timeline it would take, and the milestones in different phases. In phase 1, how much will be brought in. There are some smaller, low-hanging fruits, low-hanging units.
Like?
That, for example, the light section mill that produces the iron rod. You don't have to wait to have the blast furnace back on track. You can fix the light section mill, produce iron rods, which can be used to build road infrastructure across Nigeria. The other thing is the power plant. The power plant can be put back on track to power the place and evacuate the excess to the national grid and improve the power supply in Nigeria. The calcination plant can be put together, which can help to the cement companies, close by in that environment to provide them with the limestone requirement. The other thing that is also very critical is the engineering workshop. There are 5 engineering workshops within the Ajaokuta steel complex. That engineering workshop, once they are put back into operation, we're in very advanced discussions with the Ministry of Defense to sign an MOU to produce military hardwares, whether it's vests, helmets, bullets, to help to improve the security situation of Nigeria. So there are massive opportunities across the steel and metals subsector.
Yeah, one can't help but ask, what is in it for the Russians?
Well, at the end of the day, if a private sector entity is coming on board, right, then it has to make economic sense. So it has to make economic sense to them if they are bringing in money, and we have to wait and see how that unfolds. How long would it take for them to recover, their capital that they bring back? Of course, they will require, I suspect they will require a federal government guarantee. In what way, shape, or form, would have to wait and see till after the technical audit. But those are some of the financial details that we'll have to walk through.
Does that mean that while they're bringing in their money for now, they are over everything? they are here with their expertise and they're overseeing everything.
Yeah, so what happened was I went to Russia to sign the MOU last year. Before I went to Russia, they sent an advanced team of about 30 engineers to Ajokuta to take a cursory look at the plant, to be able to make a determination as to, what can be done quickly, what can be done in the medium term, and what can be done in the long term. They've done that analysis, and based on that, we signed an MOU. Once that MOU, now that MOU has been signed, the next phase is the technical audit. They'll bring in technical expertise to be able to do a proper assessment of what it would take and how long it would take to bring that plant, back on track.
I wanted to leave this for later, but you've mentioned it. So, I can't help but bring it up now. During your budget defense, the question of audit came up. The lawmakers took exception to another audit and wondered why the non-implementation of the past 3 audits. So why this one now?
Okay. I think part of the issue is, perhaps some misunderstanding or some lack of, understanding some of the issues. The issues around it is that the last audit that was done about 10 years ago.
3 have been done.
Yes, 10 years, at least 10 years ago, and the ones that were done before that, right? So the last one was done about 10 years ago. Now, you can't have a 10-year-old audit that is bankable. You need an audit, a technical audit report that is bankable, that reflects the reality of the current situation. When the audit was done, naira to dollar was, less than 200. Inflation has moved up in multitude since then. Economic variables have changed. Market dynamics, there's since been a war in Russia and Ukraine. A lot of parameters are now very much different. So for anyone to say that, use a 10-year-old audit, I'd have to vehemently disagree with that. I think that would be improper, and that would not be doing justice to Nigerians.
That seems to make sense. Still on the audit question, a committee member, Natasha Aboti, wondered how you arrived at a $2 billion, yes, without having yet conducted the audit. That was what she was. I don't know how that came about. So she was wondering why. She didn't seem to find that comfortable.
Yes. Again, let me explain. Again, these are estimates from technical experts. From some of my technical experts and some of the consultants that work in the steel industry. A proper estimate would come out after, or a proper number, a specific number will come out after the technical audit. But, we can't just be shooting in the dark. We need to have an estimate of the expectation. As a government, we have to, if you're going into a negotiation, you can't go to a negotiation empty-handed. You have to know the sort of things that you are looking for within the ballpark of what you want.
So
and based on that,
projected.
Yes, correct.
Okay, well, let's discuss challenges. What are you going or intend to do about outdated technology and lack of local expertise, undermining production efficiency and product quality? Because this is one of the challenges there.
Yes. Again, that is why some of the engineers, some of the artisans, some of the skilled and semi-skilled manpower within the steel industry needs to be trained and upskilled. Otherwise, if you fix the plant, who's going to run it if they are not trained? Or, how the artisanal, steel producers going to, function effectively and drive the sort of value that Nigeria is looking for. Those are the critical elements of why a training is required. And, the Methodological Training Institute, which is an institute under my ministry, was designed to do that. Our founding fathers and the expert that designed the model of steel, thought through the process of putting a training institute, which was why that was done. The other point that I would like to mention is that, the last time that the GINL, the Indians, were on ground before they left about, let's say, 12 or so years ago, 10, 12 years ago, they were about 4,000 staff in Ajaokuta. Since then, it has continued to decline up until where we are today, where it's about 1,500 or so staff in retirement. But a lot of those staff, right? And I'm not saying the model is perfect, but a lot of those staffs are required to, for example, flush some of the underground water system in Ajaokuta to stop the plant from drowning, from sinking, to stop the plant from sinking. Some of the equipments need to be maintained so that at the end of the day, if you are able to find people that are coming to restart the plant, they are not starting from scratch. And like you mentioned, you can't come from abroad without having some local knowledge to guide you. You can't just fly in from a foreign country and start driving around Nigeria without having a guide or a driver that will take you around. Those are the uses of the engineers that we have, on ground in Ajaokuta.
You didn't talk about the outdated technology. Are the Russians supposed to update that, outdated technology?
Yes, some of those outdated technologies, would need to be updated. And a determination for that would be made, again, after the technical audit. The technology in Ajaokuta is about 40 years old, as you know, or over 40 years old. A lot of the technologies have since been modernized, but the core component of that technology is still valid. The steel industry is not an industry, it's not information technology industry where the technology changes, every 1 year or 6 months. It has a long gestation period. But yes, the technology has since enhanced. And these are some of the things that the technical audit would make a determination as to what needs to be changed.
Now, one of the major things to be affected in that Ajaokuta is development of local raw materials.
Yes.
What inroads, if any, has been made in this angle?
Yes. The MOU we signed was not just for Ajaokuta, it also covered the National Iron Ore Mining Company Limited. Part of the challenges that we're having is the issue of illegal mining of those iron ores in the Itakpe environs. I've had extensive discussions with my colleagues, with my colleague in solid minerals, and we have deployed mining marshals to try to, or we're in the process of deploying mining marshals to try to reduce the impact of illegal mining. But part of what would be required would be for the mining operations to start properly. Some of those technologies, some of those equipments will need to be brought back on board. But instead of waiting for a whole-scale resolution to the problem, part of the discussion I've had during the negotiation process is that we should find a way to get some of these things off the ground while we're trying to resolve the problem as a whole. So let me give you an example. Instead of taking the iron ore and processing it and then putting it into the relevant equipments to create the iron ore that produces the iron rods, for example, what I suggested is we could have a situation where some of those billets could be imported from a cheaper environment, put in the rolling mills and rolled out into iron rods, and this would shorten the time and expedite the process.
Brief us on the groundbreaking ceremony on 5 mini LNG plants that you're intending to do in Ajaokuta. I think is it tomorrow? You're
Yes, correct. And I'll be there tomorrow, God willing. Again, this is what the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President is all about. How to create greener energy, more efficient energy. 5 mini LNG plants, are being, we're undertaking a groundbreaking ceremony. It's been driven primarily by NNPC. It's a venture between NNPC and a number of, private companies. And, some of the benefits of this is that those liquefied natural gas that will be produced in Ajaokuta will be provided to some of the cement plants up north and would also serve other factories up north, as opposed to transporting them from, all the way in the south region and transporting them all the way up there. Ajaokuta is a central location that can feed both the north, and all across the country. Correct. So it's going to help to create thousands of jobs for the locals. It's going to create economic value, and that's what that's what we're driving.
All right. On the Aluminium Smelter company, what was your impression of the? I think you went to Akwa Ibom.
Correct.
So, what was your impression of the plant, and how do you plan to get it operational, considering the legal impasse?
Yes, thank you. I got back from Ikota Basi in Akwa Ibom yesterday. What I would say is, it's really a shame that you have an asset that I would consider a gold mine. The plant has the capacity to produce just under 200,000 metric tons of aluminium ingots and billets. Aluminium, as you know, is a very, very key component for the automobile sector. Yep. We can get our automobile off the ground. It's a massive plant with massive opportunities. I took a tour of the plant. If you look at, the ground that it covers is very massive. It has the potential to create almost 20,000 direct and indirect jobs. It has the potential to generate more than $500 million in revenue annually, and it has very, very huge potential. Unfortunately, there are impasse around ownership issues, and we have two different judgments. One, a judgment from the Supreme Court, which favors a particular party. The other, a judgment from the London Arbitration Court, which favors another party. Now, those judgments are binding on all of the parties. But because, judgment has been passed by the Supreme Court, what I'm saying, again, is very important that it's not prejudicial to the whole court process. But I think the bottom line is, Mr. President summoned a meeting of myself last year. He called me into a meeting in his office in the villa in July last year, where the chairman of ALSCON was in attendance together with some of my colleagues, as well as the special advisor to the president on energy. And he gave me a chart that I should ensure that all the issues around the Aluminium Smelter Company is resolved within the quickest possible time. Okay. And again, like I mentioned, I think the last thing that I'll mention is that, again, part of the strategy of getting to our desire, the president's desire under the Renewed Hope agenda of $1 trillion economy by 2030 would hinge on the revitalization of aluminium plants such as ALSCON.
All right. There are more questions I have here, but we don't have all the time. Let me just chip in this. Okay. If I have time, I'll chip in this one. Experts are saying steel development should be on the concurrent list to allow sub-national participations and a vista for local and artisanal investors in the sector. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that steel is a very critical component. And, we're importing about $4 billion worth of steel annually. And I believe that certain measures and policies can be put into place. Part of what we're doing to address all of those things are, we want to put together a regulatory framework that addresses most of these issues, like the methodological industry bill. We're going to call a stakeholders conference where all the critical stakeholders will be there to debate the bill before we submit to the relevant Senate Steel committees and the House Committee on Steel as well, for us to be able to pass a regulation that would provide value.
All right, such a short time, I'm going to have to end it there. I was going to talk about modernizing the sector, where you have 57.2% going to personnel cost and 34.6% on capital expenditure. And the legislators are wondering why, but I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Minister of Steel Development, Shuaibu Abubakar Audu, for being on Arise Prime Time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edi. Very much appreciated.
You're watching.